So I'm just going to make a couple comments and then I'm going to read these articles. So you've got Vladimir the Mad, Vlad Putin, Pooty Poo. He's been goddamn fucking dictator since 1999. In 1999, you also had the bombing of Grozny, where you had 20,000 Chechens that got bombed and blew up. Now you're going to have Putin. It gets a little complicated, but you had President Yeltsin. He's going to pull a Nixon. He's going to resign and then give the presidency to Vladimir Putin. And then Putin's going to, win, quote unquote, win like his subsequent elections. But essentially, he was appointed by Yeltsin. Yeltsin was elected. Yeltsin is, whatever, but Boris Yeltsin, old Boris Yeltsin. All that happens in 1999. All that happens right before the turn of the century. If you know anything about false flags, you know that it happened, several times. It's not the only thing that happens, but it happened in the Spanish-American War. The Spanish sunk the USS Maine, but it was actually just an explosion. So an accident made it look like there was an aggression. Then there was, you had Vietnam, the Gulf of Tonkin bombing. That was some bullshit too. And then you had the Reichstag. The most famous would be the Reichstag, because that's Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler is going to come to power. He's going to attack the Reichstag. He's going to come to power by attacking the Reichstag because, now you need a strong man. And then once he attacked the Reichstag, he blamed it on the communists and then used that attack, that terrorist attack, to go after all of his political enemies. So the bombing of the Reichstag was a false flag operation. So is it possible that Putin killed 300 Russian people to blame it on Chechnya, and then killed 20,000 Chechens in order to solidify his position as president of Russia? And then furthermore, even a bigger question, this Wikipedia article, it's a good article, you should check it out. It's called Russian Apartment Bombings. And these Russian apartment bombings is, according to a lot of people, and it's a lot of credible evidence, a false flag operation that Putin had done to get himself into a position of power. He rises to power on a frenzy of anger, on a frenzy of bloodshed. This is, this very much seems like the Reichstag. This very much seems like a false flag operation. The USS Maine and the Gulf of Tonkin bombing. So the Russian government involvement theory, there's David Satter. He says that it was a successful coup d'etat coordinated by the Russian state security services to win public support. It's also Yuri and Alexander, Vladimir, Boris. There's like 5 people there that all think that, Putin did this. And to win public support for a new full-scale war in Chechnya to bring Putin to power. We know Putin comes to power. We know that Putin benefits, from these bombings. But did Russia actually commit the bombings? It's almost like when they say Bush, knocked down the towers. Bush did 9/11. Maybe Bush just turned a blind eye. Maybe it just shit happened on his fucking watch and he was able to, make a mountain out of a molehill. A few terrorists did some atrocious damage. We need to declare war on the entire world. Nah, except for Saudi Arabia. Let's declare war on the entire world, except for Saudi Arabia. Because they're our buddies. They're our oil buddies. We can't hurt our oil buddies. We don't support historian journalists. There's this. So I want you to read the Wikipedia article. America, world, humanity, Russian apartment bombings. Because at the very end, you have, the criticism. So it says, this is, one theory. Here's the criticisms to that theory. And then at the very end, it's got sealing information by the U.S. government. So David Satter had filed a FOIA request with the State Department, the CIA, and the FBI about these apartment bombings, these Russian apartment bombings. But the CIA refused to even acknowledge the existence of it, and then apparently they had something. The reason given was the potential to inject friction into or cause serious damage to relationships with the Russian government that were vital to U.S. national security. So either the CIA was involved or the CIA fucking knows some shit, but how the fuck can the CIA get away with not telling us? I mean, it's goddamn 23 fucking years later. They're not telling us, about JFK. They're not telling us about goddamn Putin. We don't know if goddamn fucking Putin bombed his own fucking people in order to come to power. Somebody had suggested that maybe the Clintons had helped him come to power. So what the fuck? What the fuck? Here's an article, Hudson.org. The evidence is overwhelming that the apartment house bombings in 1999 in Moscow, Buyansk, and Volgodonsk, which provided a pretext for the Second Chechen War and catapulted Putin into the presidency, were carried out by the Russian Federal Security Service, the FSB. Yet to this day, an indifferent world has made little attempt to grasp the significance of what was the greatest political provocation since the burning of the Reichstag. We keep saying this, right? This is the biggest shit since World War II, the biggest shit. This motherfucker's been fucking Hitler-esque. He came to power just like fucking Hitler. He's invading countries just like Hitler. We've been trying to call attention to the facts behind the bombing since 1999. I consider this a moral obligation because ignoring the fact that a man in charge of the world's largest nuclear arsenal came to power through an act of terror is highly dangerous in itself. Yeah, that means Vladimir Putin is not he's not the president of Russia. He's a terrorist fucking criminal, piece of shit. A kleptocrat. And Noam Chomsky called him a kleptocrat something. A kleptocrat status. A kleptocrat petro state. A kleptocrat. So he's stealing all the Russian oil money and shit. And he's a terrorist fucking nation. So this motherfucker got into power by terrorism, continues to hold on to power through fucking terrorism. He threw goddamn Pussy Riot into fucking jail. None of those goddamn elections have been fucking legitimate. Putin's been running a terrorist regime for the last 23 fucking years. And then you also got Russian human rights defender Sergei Yushchenko, Yuri Shekechikin, Anna Politkos, Kaya Alexander Litvinenko. So Sergei, Yuri, Anna, and Alexander were all fucking killed. They were murdered between 2003 and 2006. They were working to shed light on the apartment bombings. By 2007, when I testified before the House Foreign Affairs Committee about the bombings, I was the only person publicly accusing the regime of responsibility who had not been killed. The bombings terrorized Russia. The Russian authorities blamed Chechen rebels and thereby galvanized popular support for a new war in Chechnya. President Boris Yeltsin and his entourage were thoroughly hated for their role in the pillaging of the country. Putin, the head of the FSB, had just been named Yeltsin's prime minister and achieved overnight popularity by vowing revenge against those who had murdered innocent civilians. He assumed direction of the war, and on the strength of initial successes, was elected president easily. Almost from the start, however, there have been doubts about the provenance of the bombings and da-da-da-da-da. Here's you got nationalreview.com. I've been trying to call attention to the facts behind the bombing since 1999. This seems like it's the same motherfucking author. Who wrote this? Let's see. Those who tried to investigate have been killed. So David Satter. David Satter wrote this August 17, 2016. The unsolved mystery behind the act of terror that brought Putin to power. By David Satter. BusinessInsider.com. David Satter is the one, this is a great fucking journalist. Great fucking journalist. I mean, who knew that all this would have been, who knew that history would have mattered in the future? You had to be deaf, dumb, and blind not to see what was going on. In particular, David Satter said, you had to be willfully ignorant if you didn't see the implications of the Ryazan incident. David Satter is a U.S. journalist and expert on Russian politics. He was expelled from Russia after claiming that Putin and the FSB were behind the apartment bombings. In the summer of 1999, the approval rating of former President Yeltsin was 2%. There appeared to be no chance whatever that Putin, who's designated by Yeltsin as his successor, could possibly become the next Russian president. The apartment bombings changed everything. It was said after those buildings went up that now we're living in a completely different country. More than 200 people were killed in the September bombings. Russia blamed Chechen militants, triggering the Second Chechen War. Triggering the Second Chechen War.